Hello, I'm Daniela, and in today's video, I'm going to show the process of creating a fabric yo-yo using a two-piece template similar to this one. Using a template is a kind of a fun way to take the guesswork out of creating a fabric yo-yo. With using this template, you'll get a perfect seam every time without having to use an iron or to press your fabric. So it does take some of the hassle out of creating these fabric yo-yos, making them easy to make an abundance of them in a short period of time. Now I'll show you my technique. So in a previous video, I showed how I made this yo-yo using just any circle. I think I used the cap from a candle that I liked, which was about 4¼ inches, to get this size fabric yo-yo. Today I'm going to use this template put out by a company named Clover that makes a lot of sewing notions. No, I have no affiliation with them. They're not sponsoring this video or anything. I own a few of these templates because I find them very useful for making yo-yos, and I like that they come in various sizes. This one's 45mm, but it produces some yo-yo that's about half its size, so it's kind of a nice way to do it. It also has the guide here. It's a two-piece template, and if I pop out the guide, you can see little holes here for your stitches. There are some pitfalls. You can accidentally stitch through the wrong ones, but once you figure out the method of using it, it comes very naturally. Each of these templates is 2 parts, whether it's the small one or the large one. Then they come with the instructions, and I'm just going to go through the instructions with you today, showing you my procedure. So there's all these different size templates, and they always tell you the finished size of the yo-yo that you'll make. This one will produce a 1 3/4 inch yo-yo when we're done. So it will be a little smaller than the one we made previously in another video. Now, regardless of what size yo-yo you use with the template, it's the same exact procedure. So there are the 2 parts to the template, the back, as I call it. They describe it as having these protrusions. It's not a flat piece. I don't know if you can see it, but it's got a little rounded bump here. And then it looks like scalloped edges. This is where your needles are going to go. And then it has this front piece where you're going to snap the fabric in between. So the procedure is just to take your fabric, and here I just ironed it so there were no wrinkles. And I'm just going to place it down so that the front of it, my good facing fabric, is on the front of this template. And you'll know because you can see the brand name. You'll know that that's the front because you can read the brand name appropriately. So then I take my backing piece, and again I'm looking for that brand name to make sure that I'm doing it correctly and this is the correct formation. And I'm just going to work it in to my first template, and then I'm going to snap it down. And you want to make sure you snap it down around, and you'll hear it so that you know you snapped it down correctly. So all you do is you firmly press it all the way around. Then I'm going to take my scissors, and this will make it easier overall. I want to cut my fabric, and I want to cut it so that there's about 1/2 inch, maybe a little slightly less than 1/2 inch around my template. So I just kind of cut in, and I just then make an even cut all the way around. And you want to do this so that you have a nice seam on the top of your yo-yo. So it's not 100% even, but it's pretty nice. Then you just want to fold down your fabric around the edges. I'm just finger pressing it here. You don't need to take an iron or anything like this. You just want to coax the fabric straight down. From here, I'm going to take my needle and thread, and I've knotted the end of my thread. I'm using this pearl cotton, but if you wanted to double thread your needle and make one knot holding both ends together, you could do that. I don't feel it necessary. From there, you want to look around your piece here, and you'll see the starting point. And the starting point is, if you look all the way around, you'll see these little holes. There's 3 of them. Any one of those is a good starting point. So I kind of keep that in mind, and I just want to start from there. So I'm going to turn my piece upside down, and I want to go from that starting point just to the left of it. There'll be a double, kind of a loop. If I hold it this way, it looks like a parentheses. I'm going to come in from underneath through one of those holes in the parentheses and then bring my needle up and go down over them. And then I'll come to the next one and bring my needle up and then down. And it's fairly easy to remember. What I don't want to do is bring my thread over this template. That's why this parentheses is curved, so that no thread will be on top of this template. Now, if you accidentally stitch over that, you just won't be able to remove your template when it's done. So it's not a big deal. You can start anywhere on the template. It doesn't have to be on these holes. It's just one way to keep a guide going. So all I'm doing is taking my needle and I'm bringing it straight down through both layers of fabric, pulling it up, and then I'm bringing it down on that other side of that parentheses mark. And again, I'm coming through both sides of my fabric. Now, if I miss the fabric, it's not a problem. I can just remove that needle, hold it down, and do it again. Now I have a beautiful even stitch. I'm going to take the needle, go to the next parentheses. I'm going to look for that hole, and you can even turn it over, knowing it's right there. Coming through both of those pieces of fabric, holding this down on this side, and going through that hole. Then I hold the fabric, pulling it taut, come up over here. And I'll do the same thing all the way around. I like to just go from the top here because I can see all my stitches, and also I get a feel for where the next thread is. And I go down. Now I want to be careful. Again, it's not a big deal, but I just don't want to stitch over that template. And as long as I stay in that path that they've established here with all these little stitching guides, I'll be fine. So I'm going to stitch all the way around all of the ones until I get back to where I started. So I just keep going down and up, and I'm pulling the fabric back on the back side so that it pulls it down. I'm about halfway through. It's very hard to tell because I used blue thread on blue fabric, but I did that by design so I wouldn't see the thread as on the end result. So I can keep checking. Where I started and where I am, and just continue. And it's very easy to do. The templates are very lightweight. They're durable enough, but they don't offer a lot of resistance. Come to the next parentheses, go down, and again, just a few more. Now you want your thread to be long enough to do all the way around, because there's no give. The fabric is not going to form a cup and require less thread as it did when I was stitching it by hand, because the fabric could then arc up and I didn't require as much thread. So for this, because this template holds it flat, you'll need a little more thread in your needle. Once I get to the end, I want to bring my needle through that same stitch, our first stitch, but I don't want to go through the knot. Just want to leave that knot freestanding. And then I'm going to snap out the template. So I'll bring my needle up and I'll go over that same stitch just so that it's 2-ply. I'm going to snap out my template. And so my template can go to the side here. Now I have my template stitched all the way around. And over here it appears that I skipped a stitch, but I don't think that will make a big difference. I'm going to gently ease the fabric off the template. I don't want to break my threads. Then I'm just going to push it over. Holding it down, I'm just going to gently pull this thread, and I'll slowly pull it all the way around, pulling out the thread to release some of the tension, and then continuing to pull it again. I have a little pouch, almost like a little dumpling, and now I can just play with it to flatten it out and to make that perfect yo-yo. Now, even though I skipped a stitch, you don't see it here. You see this beautiful rounded yo-yo. So again, I'll just pull my thread, and I want to take that needle, bring it back through the fabric, pull my stitch, and then loop it through to knot it off. And I just like to do 2 of these. And I move it to the other side of the yo-yo. Technically only 1 knot is necessary, but I like to just reinforce it with 2. And then I snip my thread, and I have this beautiful yo-yo. I can play around with the edges just to nicely round it out. I can even use an iron to press it, but I have a beautiful yo-yo. One thing is that the manufacturer of this, the Clover manufacturer, suggests using a small needle. I understand why they suggest using a small needle. It's a little more nimble. I happen to like using this long needle, and because of that, I just make sure I have enough thread, and with enough thread I have enough space to use my needle. So that's just another thing to consider. So that's how I make my fabric yo-yo using a plastic template. You can find these templates online, of course, and then in any type of sewing store. They usually have them in a variety of sizes and even in shapes. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe. Thanks for joining me today.